Hey, welcome. You're at Knapp Tumbling Central. Thanks for stopping by and visiting with us. Got my executive producer, grandson Chance here, helping me out. So kind of carrying forward with our last little bit. I've got a set of stones that I'd run through the polish stage, but at this juncture, this last batch, they really ended up with a bunch of scratches and a bunch of larger fractures that started to come forward. So we're going to run them back through again. Grit number 2. I'm going to take them all the way back to grit 2 and really rerun them. Now, while I'm working on another tumbler, I'm going to keep the stones wet because we don't want them drying out with any extra grit, even though they've been rinsed. Any extra grit actually drying within those small fracture lines. All right, Knapp Tumbling Central. This is our number 2 machine that we were working on. I'm now going to run these stones back through to a number 2 polish. So I've added my various sizes of stones that I've got in here, and I've added some brand new coarse, heavier media to it to make sure they can go ahead and start to grind them down. Then we're going to take our number 2 grit down. Go dry my hands. I'm going to open that up. As you can see, I've filled the barrel almost about 2/3 full with both stones and with media, and I just have the water just barely covering the stones, as we want them to actually be able to tumble in there. So we'll take now our tablespoon. So I've got a pretty good batch in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do 3 tablespoons in it. So it's about 180 to 220 silicone carbide, same kind of thing that you get on, diamond tipped blades and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's a heavier, but not as heavy as your primary coarse grit, which can be at a 60 silicone carbide, or sometimes it's referred to as 60-80. We'll put our lid on here tight, run it around like so, then the cap goes on. We'll run that on it. Pink. This goes here. Then I take and we tap it. There's my executive assistant. We tap that down nice and solid so that the lid is on even. So it should be good. Yeah, tap her around on it a little bit. Oh, look at that. Hope everyone notices that technique. That's perfect. And we crank this thing down so it's nice and tight. We don't want it spilling. Once we get this all set up, is to take, and I might take this particular sheet and move it off completely and start a brand new sheet with this batch of stones, keeping this one behind it because it's kind of a combination of the stuff when this whole thing first started, and we'll get it written on down. So I'm going to put it on the barrel. We're going to take and pump that up to 9 days and we'll let it run. And since we're going back to a number 2 grit, we want it at a more aggressive speed. And look at this, bam, off we go. Bam, isn't that great? Never ask for overtime. I love that. Hey, if you like the video, please subscribe, click like, send in your comments. Chance and I appreciate you watching. Thanks. This is a great stone to show you. Now it's a rough, but it's one that gets, in terms of selecting stones, it's important that you take an opportunity. Not every stone, even though this is a nice quartz, you can see that through, it's translucent, but as we look close to the stone, all of these fractures and pits. Now, you might put it in to go ahead and act on the tumbling of grit number 1, but this stone really should be pulled then and thrown after that. There's just too many fractures and pits. All of this will fill up with grit and will just get carried. There's no way to get it all cleaned out, and it will just get carried through to the next batch, and you'll be carrying that really rough grit all the way through, and it will contaminate that batch and cause scratches and can ruin your stones as you move forward. So I'm just going to circumvent that, and as much as I hate to get rid of stones, this one just goes right down in the garbage. There we go. We round filed that. Okay, so now I've got my 3rd machine up here that I put on pause. This one I started on a rough tumble doing with 4 different sizes of stones, and it was started a little over 11 days ago, about the 8th or the 9th of August. So we're going to pull it off because it's through the first phase. It's had a pretty good run, and I've now gone and run a rinse on it, and we'll get a chance to check out how the stones are doing after this first phase and what they look like. And some of these may be able to move forward to the number 2. Some of them I might need to put into a grit number 1 and retumble again for a longer period of time. But those that actually can move to grit number 2, I'll just simply add to my batch over here so that we keep moving forward with the grit. Then it really helps with these nice little small screwdrivers, pinch the barrel. Hey, welcome back to Knapp Tumbling Central. Say I'm just pulling off barrel number 3 from machine, and it has been running on rinse for 24 hours with just a drop of soap. This has been running for about let's see, how many days now? 9 to 20. We're talking about 11 days that it ran on grit number 1. So we want to see how our stones are coming on out from that time period. Now, usually, I mean, I turned off machines so that you don't hear so much noise because it's really noisy. A lot of times when I'm tumbling and they're all on grit number 1, which is very aggressive, I'll usually put on hard rock music because that helps grind the stones better. Once I get down to the finish stage, then maybe I'll play a little classical music. You know, whatever works to help get the stones through the next step. So here we go. We're going to dump these on. Now they're still in that very first initial tumble stage, so we're going to see a lot of, oh, look at this. So, interesting. See, now that's after, good grief. These are incredibly hard stones. You see how they just really, the edges, they were so jagged and almost knife-like. And so a bunch of those edges have all been rounded and softened. But boy, compared to what's happened to the aventurine here, or which is a kind of a couple purple amethyst aventurine, or the onyx, how they actually smooth on out. This is a stone that is very hard, kind of similar in some ways. This is an agate. Look at that. Oh my goodness. So we may run those all the way back through another number 1 tumble because the stones themselves are just so hard that they're not really tumbling out smooth. Still getting some really unique looks, but when we run them through again, we'll get a better idea. So let me run some rinse on them. So here's our batch on grit number 1, and I've gone and done the rinse, and now I'm going to go ahead and move these stones into a tray that we can go ahead and fill with water, and then we'll actually inspect the stones and decide which stone needs to go to the next phase or next step, and decide some sort of disposition to it. Chance and I will hold, we'll be prosecutor, defense attorney, and judge on all these stones. So, boy, the power that we have, isn't that amazing? Haha. But we're pretty judicial with this bit of business. You know, we're not prejudiced against stones, so that's always a good thing. Boy, I got some little tiny ones in here. That's great. That's what these actually add, just a key interest. Get them all out of here, and we'll throw them up and decide. Then I'll rinse this media. As you can see here, this is actually media that I've used for ceramic with actually a lot of large pellets. But, okay, so we're going through and taking a look. Welcome back, Knapp Tumbling Central here. We had a nice stone here that is really kind of pretty, but boy, I tell you, it had a big, huge fracture line that showed lots of grit that was going to get stuck. And I decided, well, let's just go ahead and take it. And I put it up on the bench with my chisel, found the fracture line, and then just a slight tap. Make sure you have your safety goggles on when you're doing this kind of stuff, splitting stones. But now it's broken in 2, and now I'll let these both pieces move on to grit number 1. We'll start it back over again. Now I'm looking at some of the other stones that I've got in here, just really coming in nice, and I think we'll this is just after, look at the difference in these stones of 1 week, and you can tell some of them that are incredibly hard on the Mohs scale of hardness, they're all now actually smoothed off. To give you a quick example of the difference in that, let me grab this. Whoops, there we go. You can see here, this is just like a knife edge on it. I mean, I could literally go ahead and, you know, if I was a caveman, I could just use that to go ahead and scrape skin or do whatever. I mean, you know, it's, but here's what it looks like. This is that same stone after tumbling for 11 days, but very, very hard stone. So we're going to go ahead and toss this and rerun this again on a number 1. Now, Tiger Eye is a very hard stone as well. This stone here, there's a fracture line right there. I'm going to just run it through for another week again on, here's a bronze agate. This is a really big lapis lula, and boy, that's a pretty stone. We're going to go put that over in this batch. Same Tiger Eye. We'll see if it actually, we'll move it on to batch number 2. And that one I'm going to just rerun back through again. So the rest of these I think we'll rerun in number 1. Okay, so we'll start on that. These things here will go into number 2. Hey, if you like the videos, please go ahead and hit like, subscribe to the channel if you would, share it out with friends, send your comments in if you got anything that you think you'd like me to show or do. Much appreciated. Thanks for watching. Crumble up very nice. So these stones will actually move back through this one. See, that's another one of those stones that if we were to take it, put it over here, I could tap it and go ahead and, you know, break off the chunks so that now we'll let it go ahead and smooth on out as it goes through the tumble. But these are going to go back into our batch over here that are for number 2. The rest of some of these, this can go ahead and back into grit number 2. But I think the rest of these we're just going to put and rerun again on a grit number 1 and let them just really get a chance to smooth out a little bit more. Oh, that's a pretty stone. Look at the striations in that. Oh, that's a purple amethyst.